We're joined now by Chukwuemeka Eze, who is the director with West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP, and WANEP is an official partner for ECOWAS on security and peace. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
Well, give us a breakdown. Now, this meeting that they held, we do remember the ECOWAS chair, the new one, speaking about the nature of our borders, why Nigeria or ECOWAS countries should not close their borders one with another. And so many people did ask at that time, wait a minute, why not? Because the way some diplomats have conducted themselves, it didn't encourage people to do what they are talking about now. But did that pop up at that summit, and what was the response if it did?
I think more and more what a lot of people were saying at that meeting is that the Ebola virus disease once more have reinforced the fact that borders in West Africa are mere artificial. And what that means is that even if you close your borders, there are a lot of people who do not understand what it means by closing your border. I'll just give you an example. If you go to the Ewe community in Togo and Ghana, for them, overnight, a boundary just came and demarcated them and said, you're Togolese and you're Ghanaian. So people go to school on daily basis, either in Togo or in Ghana and vice versa. And therefore, when you are telling them about borders and passports, they do not understand what it means. So what the meeting focused on is how do we provide a collective response to Ebola virus? Because the president of Nigeria said Nigeria is now free of Ebola virus. But that does not mean Nigeria is off the hook, because there is still Ebola virus in Guinea, there's still Ebola virus in Liberia, there's still Ebola virus in Sierra Leone. So what does that tell us? What that tells us is that once somebody, even if it is a hunter or a fisherman from Ghana, goes just next door neighbor to fish, anything could happen in Ghana, and that can come to Togo, and that can come to Benin, and that Nigeria is back again with the virus.
That will only reinforce the reasons why countries should close their borders.
Which one are you closing? What do you mean by border? There are the official borders that everybody respects when you want your passport to be stamped.
That doesn't apply in West Africa.
It doesn't apply in West Africa. There are no walls. In any case, when these borders were created, nobody was consulted. So that's why people don't respect it. Ebola did not even respect that. Not even the conflict we have in the region. So if we don't provide a community response, and that's why it is called the economic community. If we don't provide a community response and ensure that everything about Ebola within the region is off, so long as you keep saying and assuming that it is in Liberia, then I don't think we're solving the problem.
If that were the case, I mean, the artificial nature of the borders, and then countries announcing that they're closing the borders and communities feel it is strange, why is ECOWAS worried if it's not having that kind of effect?
ECOWAS should be worried. First of all, is the foundation of ECOWAS is on economic integration. The second thing is that ECOWAS gradually is saying, let us remove any barrier to trade and integration, which means we want free movement of people, free movement of goods and services within the region. Even in countries where they are asking for resident permits, ECOWAS is saying no to that, so that the community become one community. That's why they are even talking about ECO as official currency for the region, so that you have a semblance of what we have in the European Union. And these are the partners that are providing some level of support to the ECOWAS community. So if European Union is saying we are succeeding with this integration process, why don't ECOWAS want to go in that direction? But if there is something, whether it is in the nature of disease, whether it is in the nature of conflict, that is now threatening that integration process, ECOWAS should have it as one of their major priorities. So how do you go to monitor election? How do you allow, for example, in 2015, people from Guinea to come and monitor election in Nigeria? When you say they don't monitor election, how do you keep calling them a member of the community?
Well, so, sorry, Chairman. In other words, because I think they didn't even see this coming, because initially when they talked about free movement of persons within the community, they were actually looking to building a viable sub-region, and they were looking towards issues like security, business. But now we have seen that the issue of health is very key here. And with the borders, we have just highlighted, artificial, official, what can they do? Because we're getting into the next election. You have just raised a very important point, and definitely we know we always have observers. And Nigeria, knowing full well that the outbreak of Ebola in the country came from even one of those diplomats, not even who you would want to call an ordinary African citizen. What can they do from the body of ECOWAS, for instance, and taking it to the kind of success Nigeria has recorded so far in fighting EVD at now?
I think we should understand that all these have implications. The poorer the country, the more difficult it is for them to combat Ebola. In the first place, what is the health facilities that you see in a country like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea? These are very poor countries.
That have also experienced wars.
It's also a post-war country, right? So when you tell people to stay at home, for example, in Liberia, the question is, some of those people that you're seeing, which home are we talking about? Which home? Some of them are just alone. They don't even know their parents. So the health facilities to start with is challenged. And that is why some of the issues that ECOWAS kept raising throughout this partners forum is, can we stop this reactive nature? If you want to support West Africa, can you be proactive enough to know that if we don't have this kind of... Nigeria was able to combat it because at least there's a place to keep the patients, right? Even if we complained that was not sufficient and that was not well equipped. But these guys have nowhere to even keep the patients.
No, isn't it from the way they respond first before you come to where to keep the patients? I mean, look at the story coming through from those countries where they are raiding or robbing those places where these chaps are and then dumping their relatives on the streets. I mean, you can't be acting like that and expect the borders to be open.
Why did they go to raid there? It was easier to die of Ebola than to die of hunger. These are very hungry people, not just without jobs, but even if there are jobs, they are unemployable. They have no skill. There are 14 years of no school, 14 years of no amenity. The little they had, they were all destroyed. Monrovia is the only place you can get electricity, as I speak to you in Liberia. Monrovia is the only place you can get what you consider to be electricity, and is not steady. Monrovia only. And that is why there is now surge to Monrovia with all kinds of crime. A bike person drops you, and instead of you paying the person pulls a gun. Those are the effects of post-war countries that we are seeing. And don't forget that the disarmament process was focused on arms for money, not arms for skills. So even till today, if the international community pull out of Liberia, Liberia is back to zero.
But I want to looking at also the bigger picture here, because we have to be alive, first and foremost, to sustain the economy or to keep ECOWAS. So if we let the virus ravage the entire West Africa, who's going to be in ECOWAS to sustain all of this?
No. We are not saying we should allow the virus. We are only saying
the borders,
that so long as we consider it a Liberian issue, even us in Nigeria, we're not safe. So long as we consider it a Sierra Leone issue, we are not safe. There are so many instances that have come to tell us that we are not safe. Is it in form of conflict or is it in form of diseases? The conflict that took place in Côte d'Ivoire did not spare Liberia, it did not spare Ghana, it did not spare Burkina Faso. So, more and more, we are not just talking about arms proliferation. We are even talking about rebels proliferation within the region. Because it's easy. When things happen, when the 2011 political violence happened in Côte d'Ivoire, people just moved to Ghana without them. For them, they were going to their relatives. They didn't even consider they were going to another country.